Ashoka is interested in. When we talk about non-violence and Ashoka's non-violence, he is especially connected with an attitude of concern for not only the welfare of human beings but animals. And this is because Ashoka sees himself or saw himself or says he saw himself as an emperor of not only a political empire but a moral empire in which all beings, humans and animals, were his subjects, or let us say his constituency. Kautilya, on the other hand, discusses animals quite a bit, as we'll see, but he discusses them largely as private property. And he sees animals as also a valuable economic resource for the state. And there are places where he commodifies various animal body parts which can be sold and bought and sold, so on and so forth. So there seems to be a very different attitude towards animals that we see when we compare Ashoka and Kautilya. Punishment. In Ashoka's inscriptions, we hear the king saying that the Rajukas, officers known as the Rajukas, should discharge their duties vis-a-vis the handing out of rewards and punishment fairly and fearlessly. He says there should be samata in judicial proceedings and punishment, and there's debate about whether samata means equality or fairness. So there is this concern for, regarding justice. The connection between the king and justice is strong in both cases, but there is a difference in the attitudes towards justice, because in the Arthashastra, which also happens to be the earliest expression of a detailed legal code in India, where you have a very detailed discussion of crime and punishment, all humans, all subjects are not considered the same. There is a gradation in the value that is attached to human life on the basis of varna. So varna is central to Kautilya's discussion of punishment. Not only that, inflicting pain, torture, mutilation, amputation is a routine part of punishment in the Arthashastra. And I think Ashoka, if he read the Arthashastra, might have felt a little, nauseous at some of the descriptions that are there in the text about different kinds of torture. For instance, though some of these types of torture may seem to be very mild compared to what we know of in the modern world, Kautilya talks about striking, whipping, caning, suspension from a rope, inserting needles under the nails, so on and so forth. But the kind of tenor of the discussion of punishment comes across as rather different from Ashoka, who is talking about fairness and is asking the Rajukas to be solicitous and caring in the attitude towards people in general. And as we also know, as many of you know, the principle of an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, we also see that applied by Kautilya in some cases. So we're looking at many things that are different. And among the things that are different is the attitude towards war and dhamma vijaya. Rock Edict 13 it's a very important inscription that I think everybody should read. It contains a series of arguments against war. It talks not only about the Kalinga war, but also about how war in general is a terrible thing and it affects more than the people who are directly affected. And it expands. In that inscription, Ashoka expands on the nature of the injury that is caused by war. And the king announces in that inscription that he has renounced war and urges his successors to do the same. In the same inscription, Ashoka puts forward the idea of dhamma vijaya, or victory through dhamma, righteous victory. And this was not a military victory. It consisted in spreading dhamma. So he clearly saw himself as having achieved or attained dhamma vijaya, not only in his own empire, but in the kingdoms, neighboring kingdoms, including the Hellenistic kings who were his contemporaries. What is the attitude towards war in the Arthashastra? The Arthashastra has a lot to say about war. There's a typology of war: prakasha yudh, open war; kuta yudh, which is crooked war; tushneem yudh, silent war; And we can add a fourth type of war, which is diplomatic war. These are the reasons why scholars of international relations really love Kautilya. He's there in the international relations syllabi. Political science also. I'm sure there are political science students here. A lot of discussion, a lot of classification of many things, including war. And for Kautilya, there is also a typology of victors. There are three kinds of victors. According to Kautilya, there is the Asura Vijayan, that is the demonic victor, who is only satisfied with the seizure of land and goods and wives and sons and life of the enemy. There is the Lobha Vijayan, who is the greedy victor, who wants to seize the land and goods of the enemy. And then there is the Dharma Vijayan, the righteous victor, who is satisfied with submission. So the term Dharma Vijaya, Dharma Vijayan, is there in both Ashok and Kautilya, but the meaning that is attached to Dharma Vijaya in Ashok's inscription is absolutely different from what Dharma Vijaya means in Kautilya's Arthashastra, where it is the best type, the most noble type of military victory. I think just one or two last things in terms of the differences. If you read Ashok's inscriptions, I think he comes across as a king who is extremely confident, even pompous, even arrogant. So he is very confident, he's not paranoid, he's not insecure. But although the Arthashastra is often seen as a text that justifies totalitarianism, I think it also presents a king who is very vulnerable, and vulnerable in various respects, including vulnerable to assassination. And one of the many things that Kautilya says is that a king can protect his kingdom when he is himself protected from those close to him and from his enemies, first of all, from his wives and sons. And there's a very detailed discussion about how the king must be very, very careful vis-a-vis his women, his queens, his sons. So the king lives in a world of danger, always afraid of being killed.